Hello, and welcome to Calm Science Nights. I'm so glad you're here with me tonight. Before we begin our journey into the unknown, if you find peace in drifting off to the soothing rhythm of mystery and wonder, please consider subscribing to the channel. It helps us create more of these tranquil explorations together. Now, settle into your most comfortable position. Let the weight of certainty lift from your shoulders. Tonight, we're not seeking answers, we're resting in the questions, finding peace in the mysteries that remain. For all of science's remarkable achievements, for all the secrets it has unlocked about our universe, there remain phenomena that resist explanation, questions that linger at the edges of understanding, puzzles that remind us how much we still don't know. There's something deeply restful about uncertainty, about acknowledging the limits of knowledge, about accepting that some mysteries may never be solved. Tonight, we'll explore 100 such mysteries, not with anxiety or frustration, but with gentle curiosity and peaceful acceptance. Over the next 100 facts, we'll journey through the unexplained and unexplainable, from the origins of the universe to the nature of consciousness, from quantum strangeness to biological enigmas. There's no need to solve anything tonight. In fact, there's no need to stay awake at all. Let these mysteries wash over you like gentle waves, each one a reminder that the universe is stranger and more wonderful than we can imagine. And that's perfectly fine. Just allow these words to carry you peacefully into sleep, into your own private mystery of consciousness fading into dreams. Close your eyes now, and imagine yourself standing at the edge of human knowledge, looking out into the vast darkness of what we don't yet understand. It's not a frightening darkness, it's peaceful, patient, full of possibility. Our story begins at the very beginning, with perhaps the most fundamental mystery of all. Why does anything exist at all? This question, why is there something rather than nothing, has puzzled philosophers and scientists for millennia, and despite our sophisticated understanding of physics and cosmology, we still have no answer. The Big Bang Theory tells us that the universe began approximately 13.8 billion years ago from an incredibly hot, dense state and has been expanding ever since. We can trace cosmic history back to fractions of a second after the initial moment. We can predict and observe the cosmic microwave background radiation left over from that early period. We can explain how the first atoms formed, how stars and galaxies emerged. But we cannot explain why the Big Bang happened in the first place. What caused it? What existed before it, if before even makes sense when time itself may have begun with the Big Bang? Some theories propose an infinite chain of universes expanding and contracting, but this just pushes the question back, why does that eternal cycle exist? Others suggest that our universe emerged from quantum fluctuations in a primordial vacuum. But why does quantum mechanics exist? And why should a vacuum have the particular properties that allow such fluctuations? The question why something rather than nothing may be the ultimate unanswerable question, because any answer we propose, God, quantum mechanics, eternal cycles, multiverses, simply raises the same question about that answer. Why does God exist rather than not? Why do quantum laws exist rather than not? We may be asking a question that logic cannot answer, pursuing a regress that has no final stopping point. Yet the question persists, perhaps the most profound mystery science faces, one that will likely remain forever at the boundary of what we can know. Closely related to this mystery is another fundamental puzzle about the universe. Why does it have the particular laws and constants it does? The laws of physics, gravity, electromagnetism, the strong and weak nuclear forces, and the fundamental constants that govern these forces, like the speed of light, the gravitational constant, the mass of the electron, appear to be finely tuned to allow the existence of complex structures like stars, planets, and life. If gravity were slightly stronger, stars would burn out too quickly for life to evolve. If it were slightly weaker, stars couldn't form at all. If the strong nuclear force were slightly different, atomic nuclei couldn't form stable atoms beyond hydrogen. The list goes on, dozens of parameters that, if altered even minutely, would result in a universe vastly different from ours, likely one incapable of supporting any form of complexity or life. This apparent fine-tuning is called the cosmological fine-tuning problem, and we have no explanation for it. Some physicists propose the anthropic principle. We observe these particular values because only a universe with these values could produce observers like us. In other words, the universe appears fine-tuned because we wouldn't be here to notice if it weren't. Others propose the multiverse hypothesis. Perhaps countless universes exist with different physical laws and constants, and we simply happen to inhabit one of the rare universes capable of supporting life. But these aren't really explanations. The anthropic principle is more of an observation than a cause, and the multiverse hypothesis, while intellectually satisfying to some, has no empirical evidence and may be fundamentally untestable. Science cannot tell us why our universe has the laws it does rather than some other laws, or no laws at all. We can describe how these laws operate with exquisite precision. We can use them to predict phenomena with remarkable accuracy, but we cannot explain their origin or their specific values. They simply are, and that isness remains mysterious. Moving from the cosmos to the quantum realm, we encounter another profound mystery, the measurement problem in quantum mechanics. Quantum mechanics is the most successful scientific theory ever developed in terms of predictive accuracy. It explains the behavior of atoms, molecules, subatomic particles, and has enabled technologies from computer chips to MRI machines. Yet at its heart lies a paradox that physicists have debated for nearly a century without resolution. According to quantum mechanics, particles exist in superposition, multiple states simultaneously, until they are measured or observed, at which point the superposition collapses into a single definite state. The classic example is Schrödinger's cat, a thought experiment where a cat in a box is both alive and dead until someone opens the box and observes it. While we don't actually believe cats exist in such states, at the quantum level, particles genuinely appear to be in multiple states at once until measured. The mystery is, what counts as a measurement? What causes the collapse from superposition to definite state? Is it consciousness? Does the universe need an observer to become real? Is it interaction with a macroscopic object? Is there actually no collapse, but instead a branching into parallel universes where each outcome occurs, as the many worlds interpretation suggests? Nearly a century after quantum mechanics was formulated, we still don't have consensus on what measurement means or why it produces the effects it does. This isn't just a philosophical puzzle, it's a genuine gap in our understanding of reality. We can calculate quantum probabilities with extraordinary precision, but we cannot explain the transition from quantum possibility to classical actuality. We cannot explain what Born's rule, the mathematical formula for calculating measurement probabilities, actually means about reality, or why it works. The measurement problem remains, stubbornly resistant to resolution, a reminder that our most successful theory describes a reality we don't fully understand. And so we've begun at the boundaries of knowledge, first asking why anything exists at all rather than nothing, a question that may be logically unanswerable since any proposed explanation raises the same question about itself, creating an infinite regress with no final stopping point. We encountered the cosmological fine-tuning problem, the mystery of why our universe has the particular physical laws and constants it does, values that appear finely tuned to allow complex structures in life. Gravity slightly stronger and stars burn too fast, slightly weaker and they can't form. Strong nuclear force slightly different and stable atoms beyond hydrogen can't exist. Dozens of parameters, minutely balanced, unexplained by science. We learn that the anthropic principle, we observe these values because we wouldn't exist to observe otherwise, is observation, not cause. The multiverse hypothesis, countless universes with different laws, we inhabit a rare life-permitting one, has no empirical evidence and may be fundamentally untestable. Science cannot tell us why our laws exist rather than others, or no laws at all. We descended into the quantum realm's measurement problem, particles existing in superposition of multiple states until measured, then collapsing to single definite state. What counts as measurement? What causes collapse? Is it consciousness, macroscopic interaction, or many worlds branching into parallel universes? Nearly a century after quantum mechanics formulation, no consensus exists. We found our most successful predictive theory, quantum mechanics enabling computer chips and MRI machines, describes a reality we don't fully understand. We cannot explain the transition from quantum possibility to classical actuality, cannot explain what Born's rule for calculating measurement probabilities means about reality or why it works. Each mystery a reminder that knowledge has edges, that understanding has limits, that the universe holds secrets that may forever resist our comprehension. And there's peace in that, rest in acknowledging we don't have all answers, comfort in the vast unknown. Feel yourself at that peaceful boundary now, between knowing and not knowing, between certainty and mystery. There's nothing to solve tonight, nothing to figure out. Just rest in the questions, float in the unknowing, let the mysteries carry you gently into sleep. As we continue our peaceful journey through the unexplained, we turn from the quantum realm to the nature of time itself, one of the most familiar yet most mysterious aspects of our existence. We experience time as flowing in one direction, from past through present toward future, yet science cannot fully explain why. The fundamental laws of physics, Newton's laws, Maxwell's equations for electromagnetism, Einstein's relativity, even the equations of quantum mechanics, are time-symmetric. This means they work equally well whether time runs forward or backward. If you filmed most physical processes at the microscopic level and played the film in reverse, you couldn't tell which direction was real time. The equations don't distinguish between past and future, they don't contain an arrow of time. Yet our experience is profoundly different. We remember the past but not the future. We see glasses shatter but never spontaneously reassemble. We watch milk mix into coffee but never unmix. Entropy, the measure of disorder in a system, always increases over time in closed systems, and this increase defines what we call the arrow of time, the direction from past to future. But the mystery is, why? The laws underlying these processes are time-symmetric, So why does the universe exhibit this persistent directionality? The standard answer invokes the second law of thermodynamics. Entropy increases because there are vastly more disordered states than ordered ones, so random processes tend toward disorder. But this just pushes the question back. Why did the universe start in such an incredibly low entropy, highly ordered state at the Big Bang? A high entropy beginning would have led to a universe in equilibrium, unchanging, with no arrow of time. The fact that we have an arrow of time tells us the initial state was extraordinarily special, but we don't know why. Some physicists argue the arrow of time is not fundamental but emergent, arising from our limited perspective as beings embedded in time, unable to see the full four-dimensional space-time picture. Others suggest time itself may not be real at the fundamental level, that it's an illusion created by entanglement or other quantum processes. But these ideas remain speculative, unproven. The direction of time, so obvious in our daily experience, remains unexplained by fundamental physics. Closely related to the mystery of time is the puzzle of now. Why does it feel like there's a present moment that moves from past to future? Physics describes space-time as a four-dimensional block where past, present, and future all exist equally, a block universe where time is just another dimension like space. Yet our consciousness experiences time very differently, as a moving present, a now that constantly shifts forward. This experience of the present moment is so fundamental to consciousness that we take it for granted, yet physics cannot account for it. If past, present, and future all exist equally in the block universe, why do we experience only the present? What makes one moment now? Why does now move? These questions have no answers in physics. The moving present may be an illusion created by consciousness, but we don't understand consciousness well enough to explain how or why it creates this particular illusion. Speaking of consciousness, we arrive at what philosopher David Chalmers called the hard problem of consciousness, perhaps the deepest mystery in all of science. We can explain many aspects of consciousness through neuroscience. We can map which brain regions are active during different mental states. We can explain how neurons communicate through electrical and chemical signals. We can even predict some conscious experiences based on brain activity. But we cannot explain why any physical process should give rise to subjective experience at all. Why does the electrochemical activity in neurons feel like something? Why is there an inner mental life associated with certain patterns of brain activity? We can imagine philosophical zombies, beings physically identical to us, with all the same brain processes, but with no inner experience, no consciousness. The fact that we're not zombies, that there is something it's like to be us, seems to be a brute fact about the universe that science cannot derive from physical laws. This is the hard problem, explaining the relationship between physical processes in the brain and subjective, first-person experience. We don't know why some physical systems are conscious while others aren't, or at what point in evolution consciousness emerged, or whether consciousness is unique to biological brains or could exist in sufficiently complex artificial systems. We don't even have a good definition of consciousness that would allow us to measure it objectively. Some philosophers argue consciousness is fundamental, that it's a basic feature of the universe like mass or charge, not reducible to anything more basic. Others believe it's an emergent property that arises when information processing reaches sufficient complexity. Still others think consciousness might be explained by quantum processes in the brain, though this remains highly controversial. The truth is, We simply don't know. Consciousness remains the greatest mystery of neuroscience and philosophy of mind. Another profound biological mystery involves the origin of life itself. We understand a great deal about how life evolves once it exists. Darwin's theory of evolution by natural selection is one of the most successful theories in science. But how life began in the first place, how non-living chemistry became living biology, remains largely unexplained. The transition from chemistry to biology requires several remarkable steps: the formation of complex organic molecules from simpler ingredients, the development of self-replicating molecules that can store and transmit information, the emergence of metabolism, the ability to extract energy from the environment, and the creation of a cell membrane to separate the organism from its surroundings. We have partial explanations for some of these steps, but no complete account of how they all came together. Laboratory experiments have shown that some organic building blocks of life, like amino acids, can form spontaneously under conditions that might have existed on early Earth. RNA, which can both store information like DNA and catalyze chemical reactions like proteins, might have been the first self-replicating molecule. But we've never created life from non-life in the laboratory, and we don't know the precise sequence of steps that led from simple chemistry to the first living cell. The origin of life might have been extraordinarily improbable, a lucky accident that happened only once on Earth, or perhaps was seeded from space via meteorites carrying organic compounds. Or it might be relatively easy, emerging wherever conditions are right, suggesting life should be common in the universe. We don't know which scenario is correct because we don't understand the process well enough. The origin of life remains one of biology's deepest unsolved problems. And so we've wandered through mysteries of time and consciousness, fundamental physics laws being time-symmetric, working equally well forward or backward, yet we experience time flowing one direction, past through present toward future. We remember the past, not future, see glasses shatter, never spontaneously reassemble, watch entropy, disorder measure, always increase in closed systems, defining time's arrow. We learned physics cannot explain why this directionality exists when underlying laws are time-symmetric. Second law of thermodynamics says entropy increases because more disordered states than ordered ones exist, but this pushes question back. Why did universe start in extraordinarily low entropy, highly ordered Big Bang state? High entropy beginning would create unchanging equilibrium universe with no time arrow. We encountered the mystery of now. Physics describes space-time as four-dimensional block where past, present, future exist equally, yet consciousness experiences moving present, and now constantly shifting forward. If all moments exist equally in block universe, why do we experience only present? What makes one moment now? Why does now move? Physics has no answers. We arrived at the hard problem of consciousness. Neuroscience explains which brain regions activate during mental states, how neurons communicate via electrical/chemical signals, can predict some experiences from brain activity, but cannot explain why any physical process should create subjective experience at all. Why does electrochemical neuron activity feel like something? Why is there intermental life? We could imagine philosophical zombies, physically identical but with no consciousness, yet we're not zombies. We found science cannot derive consciousness from physical laws, doesn't know why some physical systems are conscious while others aren't. When consciousness emerged in evolution, whether consciousness could exist in artificial systems, or even how to define and objectively measure consciousness. Some argue consciousness is fundamental like mass or charge. Others say it's emergent from information complexity. Still others suggest quantum brain processes, but we simply don't know. We learn the origin of life mystery. Evolution by natural selection explains how life evolves once existing, but how non-living chemistry became living biology remains largely unexplained. Requires complex organic molecule formation, self-replicating information-storing molecules, metabolism extracting environmental energy, cell membranes separating organism from surroundings. Lab experiments show some organic building blocks form spontaneously. RNA might have been first self-replicator, but we've never created life from non-life in laboratory. Don't know precise steps from simple chemistry to first living cell. Each mystery revealing knowledge boundaries, understanding limits. Time flowing yet physics time symmetric. Consciousness arising from matter yet unexplained by physical laws. Life emerging from chemistry yet the transition remaining obscure. Questions without answers, phenomena without explanations, reminders that for all we know, vast territories remain unknown. Feel yourself relaxing into these mysteries, letting go of the need for answers, finding peace in not knowing. The universe holds its secrets close, and that's perfectly fine. Just rest here, in the gentle darkness of uncertainty, where sleep comes easy when you stop trying to understand everything. As we drift deeper into the realm of the unexplained, we turn our attention to the cosmos itself and discover that most of the universe is made of things we cannot see, detect directly, or understand. A humbling reminder of how little we actually know about the reality we inhabit. In the 1930s, astronomer Fritz Zwicky observed something puzzling while studying galaxy clusters. He calculated how much mass the clusters should contain based on the visible stars and gas, then compared this to how much mass was needed to hold the clusters together given how fast the galaxies were moving. The numbers didn't match. The galaxies were moving so fast that, based on visible matter alone, they should have flown apart long ago. Zwicky proposed that the clusters contained vast amounts of unseen matter, what he called dark matter, providing the extra gravitational pull needed to hold everything together. For decades, this observation was largely ignored. But in the 1970s, astronomer Vera Rubin made similar observations of individual galaxies. She measured how fast stars orbit at different distances from galactic centers and found that stars in the outer regions were moving much faster than they should based on the visible matter. According to Newton's laws, stars farther from the center should orbit more slowly, just as outer planets in our solar system orbit more slowly than inner planets. But galaxy rotation curves remain flat. Outer stars moved just as fast as inner stars. The only explanation that fit the data was that galaxies are embedded in massive halos of invisible matter, dark matter, that extends far beyond the visible stars. Current estimates suggest that dark matter makes up approximately 27% of the universe's total mass energy content, while ordinary matter, the atoms that make up stars, planets, and everything we can see, accounts for only about 5%. This means that 27% of the universe is composed of something we cannot see, made of particles that don't interact with light or other electromagnetic radiation. Despite decades of searching, we still don't know what dark matter is. It's not ordinary matter that's simply dark. We've ruled out black holes, dark gas clouds, or failed stars in sufficient quantities. The leading hypothesis is that dark matter consists of exotic particles that don't exist in the standard model of particle physics, perhaps WIMPs, weakly interacting massive particles, or axions. Numerous sophisticated experiments are currently searching for these hypothetical particles, but so far, none have been detected. Dark matter remains invisible, intangible, known only through its gravitational effects, a mystery at the heart of cosmic structure. But dark matter is only part of the cosmic mystery. An even larger portion of the universe consists of something even stranger, dark energy. In 1998, two teams of astronomers studying distant supernovae made a shocking discovery. They expected to find that the universe's expansion was slowing down due to gravity pulling everything together. Instead, they found the opposite: the expansion is accelerating. Galaxies are moving apart faster now than they were in the past. This discovery won the Nobel Prize in Physics in 2011, but it also deepened one of cosmology's greatest mysteries. Something is pushing the universe apart, working against gravity's attractive pull, and that something has been named dark energy. But dark energy is really just a label for our ignorance. We have no idea what it actually is. Dark energy appears to make up approximately 68% of the universe's total mass energy content. Combined with dark matter at 27%, this means that 95% of the universe consists of things we don't understand. We are made of the 5% that we partially comprehend, living in a cosmos dominated by unknowns. Dark energy might be a property of space itself, a cosmological constant as Einstein once proposed, or it might be a dynamic field that changes over time. We don't know if it's truly constant or if its strength varies. We don't know if it will continue accelerating the expansion forever or if its effects might change in the future. The mystery of dark energy is so profound that some physicists have questioned whether we understand gravity correctly at cosmic scales. Perhaps Einstein's general relativity needs modification when applied to the entire universe. But decades of testing have shown general relativity to be remarkably accurate in every other context, making most physicists reluctant to abandon it. Yet the alternative, accepting that we live in a universe where 95% of the content is completely unknown to us, is equally unsettling. Returning to Earth in the realm of biology, we encounter another profound mystery that affects every living thing yet remains unexplained: aging. Why do we age? Why do our bodies deteriorate over time, eventually leading to death? This might seem like a simple question with obvious answers: wear and tear, accumulated damage, but the deeper you look, the more mysterious it becomes. Some organisms barely age at all. Certain species of tortoises, rockfish, and trees show no increase in mortality rate as they get older, a phenomenon called negligible senescence. The oldest known tree is over 5,000 years old, and it's still growing, still reproducing, showing no signs of inevitable decline. If aging were simply a consequence of physical existence, of thermodynamics and entropy, all organisms should age at roughly similar rates. But they don't. A mayfly lives for a day, a mouse for a few years, a human for decades, a bowhead whale for 2 centuries, a bristlecone pine for millennia. These vastly different aging rates suggest that aging is not a universal law of biology but something programmed into each species by evolution. But why would evolution program death? Natural selection favors traits that enhance reproduction and survival, So why would it favor traits that lead to deterioration and death? The prevailing theory is that aging is a side effect of evolution's focus on reproduction. Once you've passed on your genes, evolution no longer cares what happens to you, so mutations that cause problems late in life aren't selected against. But this doesn't fully explain aging. Some organisms reproduce throughout their lives, yet they still age and die. Others stop reproducing but continue living healthy lives for years or decades afterward. Humans are particularly puzzling. We have long post-reproductive lifespans, with women living decades after menopause. Why? Grandmother hypothesis suggests that older individuals help raise grandchildren, but this doesn't explain why men also live long after their reproductive peak, or why some animals like elephants and whales also have extended post-reproductive lives. At the cellular level, aging involves telomere shortening. The protective caps on chromosomes wear down with each cell division until cells can no longer divide. It involves accumulation of damaged proteins and dysfunctional mitochondria. It involves changes in gene expression, epigenetic modifications, cellular senescence. But we don't know which of these processes are causes of aging and which are consequences. We don't know why some species have evolved mechanisms to repair this damage effectively while others haven't. We don't fully understand the relationship between cellular aging and organism-level aging. And so we've discovered the invisible universe, Zwicky's 1930s galaxy cluster observations showing galaxies moving too fast for visible matter to hold them together, proposing vast amounts of unseen dark matter providing extra gravitational pull. Rubin's 1970s individual galaxy rotation curve showing outer stars moving as fast as inner stars when they should move slower based on visible matter, confirming galaxies embedded in massive dark matter halos. We learned dark matter comprises approximately 27% of universe's mass energy, while ordinary atoms we can see account for only 5%. Despite decades of searching, we don't know what dark matter is, not ordinary dark matter like black holes or gas clouds in sufficient quantities. Leading hypothesis: exotic particles not in standard model like WIMPs or axions, but none detected yet. Dark matter remains invisible, intangible, known only through gravitational effects. We found 1998 supernova studies discovering universe's expansion is accelerating, not slowing, galaxies moving apart faster now than in past. Nobel Prize 2011. Something pushing universe apart against gravity's pull, labeled dark energy, though we have no idea what it actually is. Dark energy approximately 68% of universe's mass energy content. We realized dark matter, 27%, plus dark energy, 68%, means 95% of universe consists of things we don't understand. We're made of the 5% we partially comprehend, living in cosmos dominated by unknowns. Dark energy might be space property, cosmological constant, dynamic field changing over time, or sign we don't understand gravity at cosmic scales, but we simply don't know. We turn to aging mystery. Why do we age? Why do bodies deteriorate over time leading to death? Some organisms show negligible senescence, certain tortoises, rockfish, trees showing no increased mortality with age, oldest tree over 5,000 years still growing and reproducing. Vastly different aging rates. Mayfly lives one day, mouse few years, human decades, bowhead whale 2 centuries, bristlecone pine millennia, suggesting aging is programmed by evolution. not universal physical law. We learned evolution programs death paradox, natural selection favors reproduction and survival traits, so why favor deterioration and death? Prevailing theory, aging is side effect of evolution's reproduction focus, but doesn't fully explain organisms reproducing throughout lives yet still aging, or long post-reproductive lifespans in humans, women decades after menopause, elephants, whales. At cellular level involves telomere shortening, damaged protein accumulation, mitochondrial dysfunction, gene expression changes, but we don't know which are causes versus consequences or why some species repair damage effectively while others don't. Each mystery revealing our small place in vast unknown, living in universe mostly invisible to us, made of matter we partially understand, aging through processes we cannot fully explain. The cosmos keeping its secrets, biology guarding its mysteries, and in that unknowing, a strange peace. Nothing to solve, nothing to grasp, just the gentle acceptance that mystery is the ocean we swim in. Let yourself float in that ocean now, buoyed by questions without answers, cradled by uncertainties, drifting peacefully towards sleep in a universe that remains, beautifully and irreducibly, mysterious. As we continue drifting through the unexplained, we turn to one of the strangest phenomena in nature, a behavior so widespread among living things yet so paradoxical from an evolutionary perspective that biologists still cannot fully explain it: sleep. Every animal with a nervous system sleeps or shows sleep-like states, from insects to elephants, from fish to humans. We spend approximately 1/3 of our lives asleep. For humans, that's roughly 25 years of an average lifespan devoted to an activity where we're unconscious, vulnerable to predators, not eating, not reproducing, not caring for offspring. From an evolutionary standpoint, sleep seems extraordinarily costly. Any mutation that reduced sleep need should have been strongly favored by natural selection, allowing organisms more time for survival and reproductive activities. Yet sleep persists across the animal kingdom, suggesting it serves functions so vital that the risks and costs are worthwhile. We know sleep is important. Severe sleep deprivation eventually leads to death in all animals studied. We know sleep involves restoration, memory consolidation, waste clearance from the brain, immune system regulation. But here's the mystery: none of these functions seem to require unconsciousness. Why couldn't evolution find a way to accomplish these tasks while remaining awake and alert? Some animals have found partial solutions. Dolphins and some birds sleep with half their brain at a time, allowing them to remain somewhat vigilant. But even these animals eventually need periods where both hemispheres sleep. The requirement for unconsciousness, for the complete disconnection from the environment that sleep entails, remains unexplained. We don't know why the restorative processes of sleep require us to lose consciousness, why the brain couldn't perform maintenance while still monitoring for threats. Even more mysterious is dreaming, the vivid, often bizarre experiences that occur during REM sleep. We spend years of our lives experiencing elaborate hallucinations, complex narratives, intense emotions, all disconnected from external reality and usually forgotten upon waking. Why? Dreams seem even more purposeless than sleep itself. Not only are we unconscious and vulnerable, but our brains are highly active, consuming nearly as much energy as when awake, generating experiences that serve no obvious function. Various theories propose that dreams consolidate memories, process emotions, simulate threats, or simply result from random neural firing that the brain tries to make sense of. But we have no consensus, no definitive explanation for why we dream or what purpose, if any, the content of dreams serves. Some people rarely remember dreams yet function normally. Dream content seems too bizarre and disconnected from waking life to serve as useful practice or simulation. The mystery of dreams, why our brains create these elaborate, energy-expensive experiences night after night, remains unsolved. Leaving the realm of sleep, we encounter another biological mystery that seems deceptively simple. How do migrating animals navigate with such precision across thousands of kilometers? Many species, birds, sea turtles, salmon, monarch butterflies, whales, undertake incredible journeys, often returning to the exact location where they were born despite never having made the journey before. Arctic terns migrate approximately 70,000 kilometers annually, from Arctic to Antarctic and back. Salmon return from the ocean to spawn in the exact stream where they hatched years earlier. Sea turtles nest on the same beaches where they were born decades ago, finding these beaches after years of ocean wandering. Monarch butterflies migrate from Canada to specific trees in Mexico that their great-great-grandparents used, despite the butterflies making the journey having never been there before. We know these animals use multiple navigation cues: the sun and stars, Earth's magnetic field, polarized light, smell, landmarks. But we don't understand how they integrate all this information to create accurate mental maps, especially for animals making their first migration with no experienced guide. How does a bird hatched in Alaska know to fly to a specific location in South America it has never seen? How does a salmon recognize its birth stream among thousands of possibilities years after leaving it? The magnetic sense is particularly mysterious. Many animals can detect Earth's magnetic field and use it for navigation, but we're still discovering the mechanisms. Some birds appear to have magnetoreception in their eyes. They may literally see magnetic fields as patterns of light and dark, though we don't fully understand how. Other animals may use magnetite crystals in their brains that respond to magnetic fields. But the details remain unclear, and for many species, we don't know how magnetic sensing works at all. Even more puzzling is how animals calibrate their magnetic sense and account for changes in Earth's magnetic field across different locations and over time. The magnetic field isn't uniform. It varies with latitude, longitude, and changes gradually over decades. Yet animals navigate accurately despite these complexities, suggesting sophisticated neural processing we're only beginning to understand. Moving from animal behavior to fundamental physics, we encounter another deep mystery: the matter-antimatter asymmetry problem. According to our understanding of particle physics, the Big Bang should have created equal amounts of matter and antimatter for every particle, an antiparticle with opposite charge but otherwise identical properties. When matter and antimatter meet, they annihilate each other, converting into pure energy. If the Big Bang created equal amounts of both, the universe should have undergone complete annihilation, leaving nothing but radiation. Yet obviously, that's not what happened. Matter survived. The universe is made almost entirely of matter, with antimatter extremely rare. This asymmetry, this preference for matter over antimatter, is one of physics' great unsolved problems. The difference must have been tiny. Perhaps one extra matter particle for every billion particle-antiparticle pairs that annihilated. But that tiny asymmetry made all the difference. Those surviving matter particles became everything we see: stars, galaxies, planets, people. We exist because of a minute imbalance in the early universe that we cannot fully explain. Physicists have discovered some processes where matter-antimatter symmetry is violated. Certain particle decays show slight preferences for matter over antimatter. But these known violations are far too small to account for the observed asymmetry. We're missing something, some process or principle that operated in the early universe to tip the balance decisively toward matter. Without understanding this asymmetry, we cannot explain why the universe exists in its current form rather than being filled with photons from matter-antimatter annihilation. And so we explored the mystery of sleep. Every animal with nervous system sleeps despite enormous evolutionary costs: unconsciousness, vulnerability to predators, no eating, no reproducing, no offspring care. Roughly 1/3 of life, humans, 25 years, spent sleeping. Mutations reducing sleep should have been strongly favored, yet sleep persists across animal kingdom, suggesting vital functions. We learned sleep involves restoration, memory consolidation, brain waste clearance, immune regulation, but mystery is why these require unconsciousness. Why couldn't evolution accomplish tasks while remaining awake and alert? Some animals, dolphins, some birds, sleep with half brain at a time for vigilance, but eventually need both hemispheres sleeping. Requirement for complete environmental disconnection remains unexplained. We found dreaming even more mysterious: years spent experiencing vivid hallucinations, complex narratives, intense emotions disconnected from reality, usually forgotten. Brain highly active during REM sleep, consuming nearly as much energy as when awake, generating seemingly purposeless experiences. Theories propose memory consolidation, emotion processing, threat simulation, or random neural firing interpretation, but no consensus, no definitive explanation for why we dream or what purpose dream content serves. We discovered animal navigation mystery: species, birds, sea turtles, salmon, monarch butterflies, whales, migrating thousands of kilometers, often returning to exact birth location despite never making journey before. Arctic terns, 70,000 km annually Arctic to Antarctic. Salmon, return to exact birth stream years later. Sea turtles, nest on birth beaches decades later. Monarchs, migrate to specific Mexico trees great-great-grandparents used, despite never having been there. We learned animals use multiple cues: sun, stars, Earth's magnetic field, polarized light, smell, landmarks, but don't understand how they integrate information to create accurate mental maps, especially first-time migrants without guides. How does bird hatched in Alaska know to fly to specific South American location never seen? How does salmon recognize birth stream among thousands years after leaving? We found magnetic sense particularly mysterious. Many animals detect Earth's magnetic field for navigation, but mechanisms still being discovered. Some birds may have magnetoreception in eyes, literally seeing magnetic fields as light/dark patterns, mechanism unclear. Others may use magnetite brain crystals responding to fields. Don't know how magnetic sensing works for many species, or how animals calibrate magnetic sense accounting for field variations across locations and time. We encountered matter-antimatter asymmetry problem, Big Bang should have created equal amounts of matter and antimatter. When they meet, they annihilate into pure energy. Equal creation should have led to complete universal annihilation, leaving only radiation, yet universe is almost entirely matter with antimatter extremely rare. This asymmetry, matter preference over antimatter, is unsolved physics problem. We learned difference must have been tiny, perhaps one extra matter particle per billion particle-antiparticle pairs that annihilated. But that tiny imbalance made everything: stars, galaxies, planets, people. Some particle decay processes show slight matter preference, but known violations far too small to account for observed asymmetry. Missing some early universe process or principle that tipped balance decisively toward matter cannot explain why universe exists in current form rather than filled with photons from annihilation. Each mystery a reminder of boundaries, consciousness requiring unexplained unconsciousness for restoration, animals navigating by mechanisms we're still discovering, fundamental particles showing asymmetries we cannot account for. The universe operating by principles we glimpse but don't fully grasp. Rest now in this gentle ignorance, this peaceful not knowing. Let the mysteries flow around you like water, supporting rather than troubling, carrying you gently towards sleep. As we drift deeper into the realm of mysteries, we arrive at a phenomenon that has puzzled scientists for decades and touches nearly everyone at some point in their lives. An experience so common yet so strange that it highlights fundamental gaps in our understanding of the mind: the placebo effect. When people take a pill they believe is medicine but which actually contains no active ingredients, a placebo, they often experience real, measurable improvements in their symptoms. This isn't imagination or wishful thinking. The placebo effect produces genuine physiological changes: reduced pain, improved immune function, changes in brain activity, even physical healing. Studies have documented placebo effects in conditions ranging from pain and depression to Parkinson's disease and irritable bowel syndrome. What makes this even more mysterious is that placebos sometimes work even when people know they're taking a placebo. In several studies, patients were explicitly told they were receiving sugar pills with no active medication, yet many still experienced symptom relief, sometimes as much as those taking actual medication. This challenges the assumption that placebos work solely through deception or expectation. Something deeper is happening, some connection between belief, expectation, ritual, and physical healing that we don't understand. We know the placebo effect involves real neurotransmitter release. Taking a placebo painkiller can trigger the brain to release endorphins, the body's natural painkillers. But we don't understand the mechanism by which expectation or belief triggers these specific biochemical responses. We don't know why some people respond strongly to placebos while others don't, or why placebos work for some conditions but not others. We don't understand how the mind exerts this kind of control over physiological processes, or what limits might exist to this mind-body connection. The placebo effect reveals that the boundary between mental and physical is far more porous than we typically assume, that thoughts and beliefs can translate into measurable biological changes. Yet medicine treats this as a nuisance to be controlled for in drug trials rather than a phenomenon to be understood and harnessed. The mechanism by which consciousness affects the body through expectation alone remains one of medicine's unsolved mysteries. Closely related is another puzzling phenomenon, the nocebo effect, where negative expectations lead to negative outcomes. If people are told a harmless substance might cause headaches or nausea, many will develop these symptoms despite the substance having no physiological reason to cause them. Surgery patients told their procedure will be painful report more pain than those told it will be mild, even when receiving the same surgery and pain medication. The nocebo effect demonstrates that the mind's power over the body works in both directions. Belief can heal and belief can harm. This raises profound questions about medical ethics, informed consent, and the language doctors use when describing symptoms and side effects. How much does the act of warning about potential side effects actually cause those side effects? We don't know, because we don't understand the mechanisms well enough to predict or control these effects. Moving from medical mysteries to the realm of physics, we encounter another fundamental puzzle: the nature of quantum entanglement and its apparent violation of locality, the principle that objects are only influenced by their immediate surroundings. When two particles become entangled in quantum mechanics, measuring one instantly affects the other, regardless of the distance between them. This connection persists even if the particles are separated by light years. Einstein famously called this spooky action at a distance and believed it indicated that quantum mechanics was incomplete. He thought there must be hidden variables, information we're not measuring, that would explain the correlations without requiring instantaneous influence across space. But decades of experiments, culminating in tests of Bell's inequality, have confirmed that quantum entanglement is real and that no theory of local hidden variables can explain it. The mystery is, how does this work? When you measure one particle's spin and find it pointing up, the entangled partner instantly has spin pointing down, even if it's on the other side of the galaxy. The correlation is instantaneous, faster than light, seemingly violating Einstein's relativity, which says nothing can travel faster than light. Yet no actual information is transmitted, so relativity technically isn't violated. The particles just know about each other's state instantly. We can describe mathematically what happens during entanglement. We can predict the correlations with perfect accuracy. We can even use entanglement for quantum computing and quantum cryptography. But we cannot explain the mechanism by which two particles separated by arbitrary distances maintain their mysterious connection. The standard interpretation of quantum mechanics offers no mechanism, it simply accepts entanglement as a fundamental feature of reality. But this leaves us with a profound puzzle about the nature of space, time, and causation. Some interpretations of quantum mechanics try to explain entanglement. The many worlds interpretation says the particles are correlated because they're really the same particle in different branches of reality. The pilot wave theory says particles are guided by a non-local wave that connects them. But these interpretations remain controversial and untested. The mechanism of quantum entanglement, one of the most verified and utilized phenomena in physics, remains unexplained at a fundamental level. Returning to Earth and human experience, we face another everyday mystery that science cannot fully explain. Why do we yawn? And why is yawning contagious? Everyone yawns. It's one of the most universal human behaviors, beginning even before birth, observed in fetuses in the womb. We yawn when tired, when bored, when waking up, sometimes when anxious. Many animals yawn too, mammals, birds, even fish, suggesting yawning is ancient and evolutionarily preserved. The traditional explanation was that yawning increases oxygen intake or removes carbon dioxide, but studies have disproven this. People breathe the same amount of oxygen whether they yawn or not, and increasing oxygen in the air or decreasing it doesn't change yawning frequency. Another theory suggests yawning cools the brain. The deep inhalation brings cooler air into the sinuses near the brain, and there's some evidence for this, but it doesn't fully explain when or why we yawn. Even more mysterious is contagious yawning. Seeing someone yawn, hearing someone yawn, even reading about yawning makes us yawn. You might be yawning right now. This contagion is real and measurable, but we don't understand why it happens. It's been linked to empathy. People who score higher on empathy measures are more susceptible to contagious yawning, and children with autism often don't show contagious yawning. But this just raises more questions. What evolutionary advantage could contagious yawning provide? Why would synchronizing yawning with others benefit a social species? Some researchers propose yawning coordinates group alertness or sleep patterns, helping social groups synchronize their activity levels. Others suggest it's simply a byproduct of mirror neurons, brain cells that fire both when we perform an action and when we see others perform it. But we don't know why mirror neurons would be activated by something as mundane as yawning when they're not activated by other basic behaviors like breathing or blinking. The purpose and mechanism of yawning, especially contagious yawning, remains genuinely mysterious. And so we discovered the placebo effect. People taking pills with no active ingredients experiencing real, measurable improvements, reduced pain, improved immune function, brain activity changes, physical healing. Studies document placebo effects in pain, depression, Parkinson's, irritable bowel syndrome. Mystery deepens. Placebos sometimes work even when people know they're placebos, challenging assumption they work through deception or expectation alone. We learned placebo effect involves real neurotransmitter release. Placebo painkillers trigger brain endorphin release, but don't understand mechanism by which expectation or belief triggers specific biochemical responses. Don't know why some people respond strongly while others don't. Why work for some conditions not others? How mind exerts this physiological control, or what limits exist to mind-body connection. Reveals mental-physical boundary more porous than assumed, thoughts and beliefs translating to measurable biological changes. We found nocebo effect, negative expectations leading to negative outcomes. People told harmless substance might cause headaches/nausea often develop symptoms despite no physiological cause. Surgery patients told procedure will be painful report more pain than those told mild, even with same surgery and medication. Demonstrates mind's power over body works both directions. Belief can heal and harm. Raises questions about medical ethics, informed consent, doctor language describing symptoms and side effects. How much does warning about side effects actually cause them? We encountered quantum entanglement mystery. When particles become entangled, measuring one instantly affects the other regardless of distance, connection persisting even light years apart. Einstein called this spooky action at a distance, thought quantum mechanics incomplete, proposed hidden variables. Decades of experiments testing Bell's inequality confirmed entanglement real. No local hidden variables theory can explain it. We learned measuring one particle's spin instantly correlates with entangled partner across galaxy, correlation faster than light. Seemingly violating relativity, nothing travels faster than light, yet no actual information transmitted, so relativity technically not violated. Particles just know each other's state instantly. Can describe mathematically, predict correlations perfectly, used for quantum computing and cryptography, but cannot explain mechanism by which arbitrarily separated particles maintain connection. We explored yawning mystery, universal human behavior beginning before birth and fetuses, observed in mammals, birds, fish, suggesting ancient evolutionary preservation. Traditional oxygen theory disproven. People breathe same oxygen whether yawning or not. Changing air oxygen doesn't affect yawning frequency. Brain cooling theory has some evidence but doesn't fully explain when or why we yawn. We found contagious yawning even more mysterious. Seeing, hearing, reading about yawning makes us yawn. Linked to empathy, higher empathy measures equals more susceptible. Autistic children often don't show it, but raises questions. What evolutionary advantage? Why synchronize yawning? Some propose coordinating group alertness or sleep patterns. Others suggest mirror neuron byproduct. But why would mirror neurons activate for yawning when not for breathing or blinking? Purpose and mechanism, especially contagious yawning, remains genuinely mysterious. Each mystery revealing the ordinary is often the most puzzling. Mind healing body through expectation alone. Particles communicating across cosmic distances instantly. Yawns spreading through groups for unknown reasons. The familiar harboring the unexplained. The everyday containing the mysterious. Rest in this gentle strangeness now. This recognition that even breathing, sleeping, thinking contain mysteries we cannot solve. Let the questions carry you, support you, cradle you towards sleep. As we continue our peaceful journey through the unexplained, we turn to one of the most fundamental forces in the universe, a force you're experiencing right now, keeping you connected to the earth beneath you, yet a force that remains, in many ways, the least understood of all: gravity. Gravity is paradoxical. It's simultaneously the most obvious force in our daily lives and the most mysterious at the fundamental level. Newton described how gravity works with equations so precise they could predict planetary orbits and send spacecraft across the solar system. Einstein explained gravity not as a force but as the curvature of spacetime caused by mass and energy. Massive objects bend the fabric of space and time around them, and other objects follow those curves. His general relativity has been confirmed by countless experiments and observations. Yet despite this success, we still don't truly understand what gravity is at the quantum level. All other fundamental forces, electromagnetism, the strong nuclear force, the weak nuclear force, can be explained by quantum field theory, where forces are transmitted by particles. Electromagnetism is carried by photons, the strong force by gluons, the weak force by W and Z bosons. But gravity doesn't fit this framework. Physicists have proposed a particle called the graviton that would carry gravitational force, but despite decades of searching, no graviton has been detected, and we don't know if gravitons actually exist. The problem runs deeper than missing particles. When physicists try to combine general relativity, our theory of gravity, with quantum mechanics, the mathematics breaks down, producing infinite nonsensical results. This suggests that either our understanding of gravity or our understanding of quantum mechanics, or both, is incomplete. String theory and loop quantum gravity are attempts to reconcile these two pillars of physics, but after decades of work, neither has made testable predictions or provided a complete quantum theory of gravity. Even more puzzling, gravity is extraordinarily weak compared to other forces. The electromagnetic force is approximately 10 to the power of 36 times stronger than gravity. You can demonstrate this yourself. A small refrigerator magnet can overcome the gravitational pull of the entire Earth to pick up a paperclip. Why is gravity so much weaker than the other forces? This is called the hierarchy problem, and we have no answer. Some theories propose that gravity only seems weak because most of its strength is leaking into extra dimensions we cannot perceive, but this remains purely speculative. Closely related to gravity's mysteries is another fundamental puzzle about the universe. Why does anything happen at all? This might sound like a strange question, but consider, the second law of thermodynamics tells us that entropy, disorder, always increases in closed systems. The universe as a whole is a closed system, and it's moving inexorably toward maximum entropy, a state called heat death where everything reaches the same temperature and no energy flows, no processes occur, no change happens. If the universe is headed toward this final equilibrium, why isn't it already there? The universe is approximately 13.8 billion years old, plenty of time for entropy to have done its work. Yet here we are, in a universe filled with structure, energy flows, stars burning, galaxies forming, life evolving. The universe is still far from equilibrium. Why? This connects back to the mystery of time's arrow we explored earlier. The universe started in an extraordinarily low entropy state at the Big Bang, and we don't know why. But there's an even deeper puzzle here. Some physicists argue that in the truly fundamental description of reality, in the timeless, block universe picture of general relativity, or in the equations of quantum mechanics, nothing actually happens at all. Change and flow might be illusions created by consciousness, artifacts of our limited perspective embedded within time. The physicist Julian Barber has proposed that time doesn't exist at the fundamental level, that reality consists of timeless configurations called nows, and the appearance of change is an illusion. We don't know if this radical view is correct, but it highlights how mysterious time remains. Why does the universe exhibit change, evolution, history? Why isn't it static? The fact that we can even ask why does anything happen suggests profound gaps in our understanding of time, causation, and the nature of physical law. Moving from cosmic mysteries to the microscopic world within our own bodies, we encounter an astonishing puzzle about our immune system. How does it distinguish self from non-self? Your immune system must constantly identify and attack foreign invaders, bacteria, viruses, parasites, while leaving your own cells alone. This is extraordinarily difficult because bacteria and human cells are both made of proteins, sugars, and fats. The chemical difference between you and a bacterium is subtle. Yet your immune system must make this distinction billions of times a day with remarkable accuracy. The traditional explanation is that during development, immune cells that react to self-proteins are eliminated or suppressed, leaving only those that react to foreign proteins. But this doesn't fully explain how the system works. Your body contains trillions of cells with thousands of different proteins, and your immune system somehow learns to tolerate all of them. Meanwhile, it can recognize and respond to pathogens it's never encountered before, sometimes within hours. Even more puzzling is how the immune system handles changes. Your own cells are constantly mutating. Some of these mutations are harmless, some lead to cancer. How does the immune system decide which mutations to attack and which to ignore? Sometimes it attacks cells it shouldn't, This is autoimmune disease, where the immune system mistakenly identifies your own tissues as foreign and destroys them. Type 1 diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis, multiple sclerosis, lupus, all result from this failure to distinguish self from non-self. We don't fully understand what goes wrong in autoimmune diseases or why they're becoming more common. We don't understand why the immune system sometimes tolerates cancer cells it should destroy, allowing tumors to grow. We don't understand how the immune system maintains tolerance to beneficial bacteria in the gut while attacking harmful bacteria that enter through other routes. The immune system's decision-making process, how it determines what to attack and what to protect, involves complexities we're only beginning to unravel. Perhaps even more mysterious is the phenomenon of transplant tolerance. When someone receives an organ transplant, their immune system should immediately recognize the foreign tissue and attack it. Transplant recipients must take immunosuppressive drugs for life to prevent rejection. Yet occasionally, spontaneously, some transplant recipients develop tolerance. Their immune system accepts the foreign organ as self without medication. We don't know why this happens or how to induce it reliably. If we understood immune tolerance fully, we could revolutionize transplant medicine, but the mechanisms remain largely mysterious. Finally, we arrive at a phenomenon so commonplace we barely notice it, yet so complex that science has only partial explanations: laughter. Humans laugh. We all do it. We do it from infancy. We do it across all cultures. Laughter is deeply social. We're approximately 30 times more likely to laugh when with others than when alone. Laughter strengthens social bonds, reduces conflict, signals playfulness and safety. Some form of laughter exists in other primates too, suggesting it's evolutionarily ancient. But what exactly is laughter? It's a peculiar behavior, rhythmic vocalizations often accompanied by specific facial expressions and body movements, triggered by humor, surprise, nervousness, sometimes nothing at all. We understand some of laughter's social functions and some of its neurological basis. Specific brain regions activate when we laugh. Specific neurotransmitters are released. Laughter triggers endorphin release, reduces stress hormones, strengthens immune function. It's genuinely good for health. Yet we don't fully understand what makes things funny or why humor triggers this specific response. Theories of humor, incongruity theory, superiority theory, relief theory, each explain some aspects but none explain all of it. Why do unexpected twists make us laugh? Why is it funny when someone slips on a banana peel but tragic when they're seriously hurt? The line between humor and horror is razor thin, and we don't understand what determines which side of that line an event falls on. Even more mysterious is why laughter is contagious. Like yawning, laughter spreads through groups. Hearing others laugh makes us laugh, even if we don't know what's funny, even if we hear recorded laughter from strangers. This is why laugh tracks work in television shows despite everyone knowing they're artificial. We don't understand the neural mechanisms that make laughter contagious or what evolutionary advantage this contagion provides. Laughter remains a beautiful mystery at the intersection of psychology, neuroscience, and social behavior. And so we explored gravity's paradox, most obvious force in daily life yet least understood fundamentally. Newton described how gravity works. Einstein explained it as space-time curvature from mass/energy, confirmed by countless experiments. Yet don't understand gravity at quantum level. All all other forces, electromagnetism, strong nuclear, weak nuclear, explained by quantum field theory with force-carrying particles, photons, gluons, W and Z bosons. But gravity doesn't fit. Proposed graviton undetected, unknown if exists. We learned combining general relativity, gravity theory, with quantum mechanics produces infinite nonsensical results, suggesting incomplete understanding. String theory and loop quantum gravity attempt reconciliation, but decades of work produced no testable predictions or complete quantum gravity theory. Gravity extraordinarily weak, electromagnetic force 10⁻36 times stronger, small magnet overcomes entire Earth's gravity to pick up paperclip. Hierarchy problem. Why is gravity so weak? Some theories propose strength leaking into extra dimensions, but purely speculative. We encountered why does anything happen? Mystery. Second law of thermodynamics says entropy always increases toward heat-death equilibrium where no energy flows, no processes, no change. Universe is closed system, 13.8 billion years old, yet filled with structure, energy flows, stars, galaxies, life, far from equilibrium. Connects to time's arrow, universe started an extraordinarily low entropy Big Bang state, unknown why. We found deeper puzzle. Some physicists argue in fundamental reality, timeless block universe of relativity, quantum mechanics equations, nothing actually happens. Change and flow might be consciousness illusions from limited perspective embedded in time. Julian Barber proposes time doesn't exist fundamentally, reality consists of timeless nows, change appearance is illusion. We discovered immune system self/non-self mystery, must identify and attack foreign invaders, bacteria, viruses, parasites, while leaving own cells alone despite subtle chemical differences. Traditional explanation, immune cells reacting to self-proteins are eliminated/suppressed during development, but doesn't fully explain how system tolerates trillions of cells with thousands of proteins while recognizing never-before-encountered pathogens within hours. We learned immune system handles changing mutations, some harmless, some cancer, but how does it decide which to attack? Autoimmune diseases, type 1 diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis, MS, lupus, result from mistakenly identifying own tissues as foreign. Don't fully understand what goes wrong or why becoming more common, why immune system sometimes tolerates cancer cells, how it maintains gut bacteria tolerance while attacking harmful bacteria entering other routes, or transplant tolerance. Some recipients spontaneously accept foreign organs without medication, don't know why or how to induce reliably. We explored laughter mystery, universal human behavior from infancy across cultures, 30 times more likely with others than alone, strengthens bonds, reduces conflict, signals playfulness/safety, exists in other primates suggesting evolutionary ancientness. Peculiar rhythmic vocalizations with facial expressions/body movements triggered by humor, surprise, nervousness, sometimes nothing. Triggers endorphin release, reduces stress hormones, strengthens immune function. We found don't fully understand what makes things funny or why humor triggers laughter. Theories, incongruity, superiority, relief, each explain some aspects but not all. Why do unexpected twists make us laugh? Why is banana peel slip funny but serious hurt tragic? Razor-thin line between humor and horror unexplained. Laughter contagious like yawning, Hearing others laugh makes us laugh even without knowing what's funny, even with artificial laugh tracks. Don't understand neural mechanisms or evolutionary advantage. Each mystery a reminder of knowledge boundaries, most obvious force least understood fundamentally, time's passage perhaps illusory, immune system making life or death decisions through unknown processes, laughter spreading through groups for mysterious reasons. The fundamental and the familiar, both wrapped in unknowing. Rest now in this gentle embrace of mystery, where gravity holds you but cannot be fully explained, where time flows but may not truly exist, where your body protects itself through processes it doesn't consciously understand, where laughter bubbles up for reasons science cannot completely capture. Let these soft mysteries lull you toward sleep, toward the greatest daily mystery of all, consciousness fading into dreams. As we drift further into the peaceful realm of the unexplained, we turn to a phenomenon that connects us to our ancient past, yet remains stubbornly resistant to full scientific explanation: music. Why does music exist? Why do humans across all cultures create music, respond emotionally to organized sound, find patterns of rhythm and melody so deeply moving? Music is universal. Every human culture ever studied has music, songs, rhythms, instruments, musical traditions. Archaeological evidence suggests humans have been making music for at least 40,000 years, possibly much longer. We find ancient bone flutes, drums, evidence of singing and rhythmic movement. Infants respond to music before they can speak, moving to rhythm, soothing to lullabies. Music activates reward centers in the brain, releases dopamine, creates pleasure comparable to food or other primary rewards. Yet music serves no obvious survival function. Unlike language, which clearly aids survival through communication, music doesn't help us find food, avoid predators, or reproduce, at least not directly. Why would evolution create brains that derive such intense pleasure from organized sound? Some theorists propose music evolved as a social bonding mechanism, helping groups coordinate and cooperate. Others suggest it's a byproduct of language evolution, piggybacking on neural systems designed for speech. Still others argue music enhanced mate selection, demonstrating cognitive abilities and creativity to potential partners. But none of these explanations fully capture music's power or ubiquity. They don't explain why certain chord progressions make us feel melancholy while others feel triumphant, why we get chills during emotionally powerful musical moments, why music can trigger vivid memories and transport us to different emotional states. The neurological mechanisms are partially understood. We can see which brain regions activate during music listening, but the deeper question remains: why does the human brain create meaning and emotion from patterns of sound waves? Even more mysterious is why different musical systems exist across cultures. Western music uses a 12-tone scale with specific intervals, but other cultures use completely different systems: quarter tones, pentatonic scales, gamelan tuning systems that sound discordant to Western ears but are perfectly consonant within their own tradition. Is there something universal about music beyond rhythm and pitch variation, or is music entirely culturally constructed? We don't know. The question of what makes music musical rather than just noise remains partially unanswered. Moving from sound to vision, we encounter another perceptual mystery that affects a significant portion of the population: synesthesia. Synesthetes experience a blending of the senses, They might see colors when hearing music, taste shapes, associate specific colors with specific numbers or letters. For a synesthete, the number 5 might always be red. The sound of a trumpet might create swirls of orange and purple. The word Tuesday might taste like chocolate. Synesthesia is real and consistent. Synesthetes given the same test months apart report the same associations. Brain imaging studies show that when synesthetes experience their crossed perceptions, the corresponding sensory regions activate. A person who sees colors when reading letters shows activation in visual color processing areas when presented with black letters on white paper, even though no color is actually present. We don't fully understand how synesthesia develops or why it occurs in some people but not others. It runs in families, suggesting genetic components, and appears to be more common in artists, musicians, and creative individuals. One theory proposes that all infants have highly connected sensory regions in the brain, and most people lose these connections during development through a process called pruning, while synesthetes retain them. Another theory suggests synesthetes have more cross-activation between normally separate brain regions. But these theories don't explain the specificity of synesthetic associations. Why does a particular person experience the number 7 as green rather than blue? Why are some synesthetic associations common across many synesthetes while others are idiosyncratic? We don't understand the mechanism that creates these stable, specific cross-sensory connections. Synesthesia reveals that perception is more flexible and individual than we typically assume, that the boundary between different senses can blur in ways we're only beginning to understand. Closely related is another mystery of perception: individual differences in experience that may be far more profound than we realize. The classic example is color perception. When you and I both look at a ripe tomato and agree it's red, we assume we're having the same experience. But what if your experience of red, the subjective quality, the quality of redness, is completely different from mine? What if what you experience is red, I would experience as blue if I could somehow inhabit your consciousness? This is called the inverted spectrum problem, and it highlights a fundamental limitation of science. We can measure wavelengths of light, map which neurons fire in response to red objects, predict behavior based on color perception. But we cannot access the subjective, first-person experience of seeing red. We cannot know if your red looks like my red. The contents of consciousness, qualia, may be forever private, inaccessible to objective measurement. This isn't just philosophical speculation. Individual differences in perception are real and measurable in many domains. Some people have tetrachromacy, 4 types of color receptors instead of the usual 3, potentially allowing them to see millions of colors that trichromats cannot even imagine. Some people experience ASMR, autonomous sensory meridian response, tingling sensations triggered by specific sounds like whispering or tapping, while others feel nothing. Some people have aphantasia, they cannot create mental images, while others have hyperphantasia, extraordinarily vivid mental imagery. These dramatic differences in basic perceptual and cognitive abilities suggest that the inner worlds of different people may be far more varied than we typically assume. We all navigate the same physical reality, but our subjective experiences of that reality might be radically different. Science can document these differences but cannot fully explain them or allow us to experience what it's like to be someone with a different perceptual system. Returning to the realm of biology, we encounter a puzzle that seems simple but has resisted explanation for over a century. What determines biological handedness, and why does it exist? Approximately 90% of humans are right-handed, 10% are left-handed, a ratio that has remained remarkably stable across cultures and throughout recorded history. This pronounced population-level asymmetry is unusual. For most traits, like height or intelligence, populations show normal distributions. But handedness shows a strong skew. Even more puzzling, handedness is linked to brain lateralization, the specialization of the left and right hemispheres. In most right-handed people, language is processed primarily in the left hemisphere, which controls the right hand. But this isn't a perfect correlation. Some left-handed people also have left hemisphere language dominance, while others have right hemisphere or bilateral language processing. We don't understand what determines these patterns. Handedness appears to have genetic components. It runs in families, but the genetics are complex and not well understood. Two right-handed parents can have left-handed children, and two left-handed parents usually have right-handed children. No single gene determines handedness. It appears to involve multiple genes with small effects plus environmental factors. But we don't know what those environmental factors are or how they interact with genetics. The evolutionary question is equally puzzling. Why does handedness exist at all? Why wouldn't evolution favor ambidexterity, equal skill with both hands? One theory proposes that brain lateralization allows specialization and efficiency. If language is processed in one hemisphere, that hemisphere becomes specialized for sequential, analytical processing while the other handles spatial, holistic processing. Handedness might be a side effect of this beneficial brain organization. But this doesn't explain why the asymmetry is so consistent across populations or why left-handedness persists despite some disadvantages in a right-handed world. Even the direction of asymmetry is mysterious. Why is right-handedness dominant rather than left-handedness? This population-level bias is found only in humans. Other primates show individual hand preferences but no population-level skew. Something about human evolution established this asymmetry, but we don't know what. Handedness remains a fundamental aspect of human biology that we cannot fully explain. Finally, we arrive at one of the most profound mysteries in biology: metamorphosis. A caterpillar enters a chrysalis, dissolves into what is essentially biological soup, then reorganizes into a butterfly, a creature with completely different anatomy, behavior, and lifestyle. This transformation is so extreme it seems almost impossible, yet it's common in insects. Beetles, moths, flies, bees, wasps, all undergo complete metamorphosis. We understand some of the mechanisms. Inside the chrysalis, most of the caterpillar's tissues break down through programmed cell death, creating a nutrient-rich soup. Certain clusters of cells called imaginal discs, which were dormant in the caterpillar, now activate and use this nutrient soup to build adult structures: wings, compound eyes, new muscles, reproductive organs. Hormones like ecdysone and juvenile hormone regulate the timing and coordination of this transformation. But understanding some mechanisms isn't the same as understanding the phenomenon. How did such an extreme life history strategy evolve? The intermediate stages would seem to be extremely vulnerable. How could natural selection favor a process where the organism dissolves itself? What were the evolutionary steps that led from simple development to complete metamorphosis? We have theories but no definitive answers. Even more mysterious, does the butterfly remember being a caterpillar? Studies suggest that some memories can survive metamorphosis. Caterpillars trained to avoid certain smells retain that learning as butterflies, despite having a completely reorganized nervous system. This raises profound questions about memory, identity, and consciousness. If an organism can be broken down to biological soup and rebuilt into a different form while retaining some continuity of information, what does this say about the nature of self? Metamorphosis reminds us that life can be far stranger than we imagine, that biology contains transformations so radical they challenge our basic concepts of organism and identity. The caterpillar and butterfly are the same individual genetically, but in almost every other sense they are different creatures. How this transformation works at a deep level, why it evolved, and what it means for our understanding of biological identity all remain partially mysterious. And so we explored music's mystery, universal across all cultures for 40,000 plus years. Bone flutes, drums, singing evidence, infants respond before speech, activates reward centers releasing dopamine creating pleasure comparable to food. Yet serves no obvious survival function unlike language. Theories propose social bonding, language evolution byproduct, or mate selection demonstration, but don't explain why certain chord progressions create specific emotions, why we get chills, why music triggers vivid memories and transports emotional states. We learn neurological mechanisms partially understood, can see which brain regions activate, but deeper question remains, why does brain create meaning and emotion from sound wave patterns? Different musical systems exist across cultures, Western 12-tone, quarter tones, pentatonic scales, gamelan tuning, raising questions whether anything universal about music beyond rhythm and pitch were entirely culturally constructed. We discovered synesthesia, blended senses where people see colors hearing music, taste shapes, associate colors with numbers/letters. Number 5 always red. Trumpet sound creates orange/purple swirls. Tuesday tastes like chocolate. Real and consistent, same associations months apart. Brain imaging shows corresponding sensory regions activate. Color number synesthetes show visual color processing for black letters on white. We found don't fully understand how synesthesia develops or why in some people not others. Runs in families, genetic, more common in artists/musicians. Theories, infants have highly connected sensory regions. Most lose connections through developmental pruning while synesthetes retain them, or synesthetes have more cross-activation between separate brain regions. But don't explain specificity, why 7 is green not blue, why some associations common while others idiosyncratic. We encountered inverted spectrum problem, when we both see red tomato and agree it's red. Do we have same subjective experience? What if your red experience completely different from mine? Science can measure light wavelengths, map neuron firing, predict behavior, but cannot access subjective first-person experience. Qualia may be forever private, inaccessible to objective measurement. We learned individual perception differences are real, tetrachromacy, for color receptors versus 3, potentially millions more colors, ASMR, tingling from specific sounds versus nothing, aphantasia, cannot create mental images, versus hyperphantasia, extraordinarily vivid imagery. Inner worlds of different people may be radically different, navigate same physical reality, but subjective experiences potentially vastly varied. We explored handedness mystery, 90% right-handed, 10% left-handed, ratio stable across cultures and history. Unusual pronounced population level asymmetry, most traits show normal distributions. Linked to brain lateralization, most right-handers have left hemisphere language, but correlation imperfect. Genetic components, runs in families, but genetics complex. Two right-handed parents can have left-handed children, usually vice versa. No single gene, multiple genes plus environmental factors, but don't know what environmental factors or how interact with genetics. We found evolutionary puzzle, why handedness at all instead of ambidexterity? Theory, brain lateralization allows specialization, one hemisphere sequential/analytical, other spatial/holistic. Handedness is side effect, but doesn't explain consistent asymmetry across populations or left-handedness persistence. Why right-handedness dominant? Population-level bias unique to humans. Other primates show individual preferences but no population skew. Something in human evolution established this, unknown what. We arrived at metamorphosis mystery. Caterpillar enters chrysalis, dissolves into biological soup, reorganizes into butterfly with completely different anatomy/behavior/lifestyle. Common in insects, beetles, moths, flies, bees, wasps. Inside chrysalis most tissues break down. Imaginal disc cells activate using nutrient soup to build adult structures. Wings, compound eyes, muscles, reproductive organs, hormones regulate timing. We learned understanding mechanisms isn't understanding phenomenon. How did extreme life history evolve? Intermediate stages seem vulnerable. How could selection favor organism dissolving itself? What evolutionary steps led to complete metamorphosis? Theories but no definitive answers. Mystery. Do butterflies remember being caterpillars? Studies suggest some memories survive. Caterpillars trained to avoid smells retain learning as butterflies despite reorganized nervous system. Raises questions about memory, identity, consciousness, nature of self. Each mystery revealing perception's flexibility, biology's strangeness, experience's privacy. Music moving us through unknown mechanisms, senses blending in ways we don't understand, inner experiences potentially radically different between individuals, bodies transforming so completely that identity itself becomes questionable. Rest now in this gentle recognition that even basic experiences, hearing music, seeing colors, using your dominant hand, contain mysteries science cannot fully penetrate. Your inner world is yours alone, perhaps unknowable to others, perhaps unknowable even to yourself. Let that privacy, that mystery of subjective experience, cradle you towards sleep. As we approach the end of our journey through the unexplained, settling into the deepest mysteries, we turn to a phenomenon that shapes every aspect of our lives yet remains profoundly mysterious: language. How did humans develop the capacity for language? No other species communicates with the complexity, creativity, and abstract power of human language. We can discuss things that don't exist, events in the distant past or hypothetical future, abstract concepts like justice or infinity. Language appears to be universal and instinctive in humans. Children acquire language rapidly and naturally, without formal instruction. following similar developmental stages across all cultures. By age 3 or 4, most children have mastered the basic grammar of their native language, a system of rules so complex that linguists still debate the details. This suggests language ability is somehow built into the human brain, an innate capacity that unfolds during development. Linguist Noam Chomsky proposed that humans possess a universal grammar, an inborn linguistic framework that underlies all human languages. But despite decades of research, we haven't identified the specific neural structures or genetic basis for this universal grammar. We don't know exactly what makes the human brain capable of language when our closest primate relatives, despite being genetically very similar, cannot master even basic syntax. The evolutionary timeline is equally mysterious. Language leaves no fossils. We can study ancient tools and art, but we cannot know when humans first spoke or what that early language was like. Some researchers argue language emerged gradually over hundreds of thousands of years. Others propose it appeared suddenly, perhaps triggered by a single genetic mutation that reorganized brain connectivity. The FOXP2 gene has been linked to language ability. Mutations in this gene cause severe language impairments, but this gene alone doesn't explain language. It's found in other species too. Even more puzzling is the question of what came first, thought or language? Do we think in language, or is language simply a tool for expressing pre-existing thoughts? When you solve a problem or have an insight, does it happen in words or in some more abstract form that you then translate into language? People report thinking in images, feelings, wordless intuitions. Yet much of our conscious thought seems intimately bound up with language. The relationship between thought and language, which enables which, whether one can exist without the other, remains unclear. Moving to another fundamental mystery, we encounter the puzzle of biological diversity itself. Why does life take so many forms? Earth hosts millions of species, each with unique adaptations, behaviors, anatomies. Evolution by natural selection explains how species change over time, adapting to their environments. But it doesn't fully explain the sheer exuberance of diversity we observe. Some environments, like tropical rainforests and coral reefs, contain extraordinary numbers of species living in close proximity. Why? Classic ecological theory suggests species divide resources, different species eat different foods, occupy different niches, reducing competition. But this doesn't explain why some environments support far more species than others, or why we see such elaborate, seemingly excessive adaptations. Consider the orchid family, over 28,000 species, many with extraordinarily complex flowers adapted to specific pollinators. Some orchids mimic female insects so perfectly that male insects attempt to mate with them, transferring pollen in the process. Others have nectar spurs over a foot long, accessible only to specific moths with equally long tongues. This specificity seems excessive. Why wouldn't simpler, more generalized flowers be sufficient? The evolutionary answer involves coevolution, sexual selection, and drift, but there's something deeper that's harder to explain. Why does evolution produce such beauty, such complexity, such apparent excess? Natural selection should favor efficiency, yet nature is full of extravagant displays, peacock tails, elaborate bird songs, iridescent butterfly wings, bioluminescent deep-sea creatures producing light shows no eye will ever see. The abundance and variety of life feels like more than just survival and reproduction. There's a creativity to evolution that we can describe but not fully explain. Closely related is another puzzle: convergent evolution. Completely unrelated species in similar environments often evolve remarkably similar solutions. Eyes evolved independently at least 40 times in different lineages. Flight evolved independently in insects, pterosaurs, birds, and bats. Echolocation evolved independently in bats and dolphins. Camera-like eyes in octopuses and vertebrates share the same basic structure despite evolving from completely different ancestral tissues. This suggests that certain solutions to environmental challenges are in some sense optimal or inevitable, that evolution, when faced with similar problems, tends towards similar answers. But we don't fully understand why this happens or what constrains the possible solutions. Is evolution's creativity actually quite limited, repeatedly discovering the same small set of viable designs? Or is the space of possible biological solutions so vast that the fact evolution finds similar answers is actually mysterious, suggesting deep principles we haven't uncovered? Turning to Earth itself, we encounter a mystery that has implications for our place in the universe. Why is our planet so perfectly suited for life? Earth orbits the Sun at just the right distance, the habitable zone where water can exist as a liquid. It has a large moon that stabilizes its axial tilt, preventing extreme climate variations. It has plate tectonics that recycle nutrients and regulate atmospheric carbon dioxide. It has a magnetic field that this is sometimes called the Goldilocks problem or the fine-tuning of Earth. Each factor individually might be explained by chance, but the combination of so many life-friendly conditions seems remarkable. Is this just selection bias? We observe these conditions because we couldn't exist to observe any others? This is the anthropic principle applied to planetary conditions. Or is there something about planetary formation and evolution that makes Earth-like planets more common than we think? We've discovered thousands of exoplanets, but we still don't know how common truly Earth-like planets are. We don't know if the specific combination of conditions Earth has is rare or common in the universe. We don't know whether life requires all of these conditions or whether life could arise in environments radically different from Earth. The question of whether our planet is a lucky accident or a common outcome of planetary evolution remains unanswered. This connects to perhaps the most profound mystery of all, the Fermi paradox. If the universe is so vast and so old, billions of galaxies, each with billions of stars, many with planets, over billions of years, why haven't we detected any signs of extraterrestrial intelligence? Even if intelligent life is rare, the sheer number of opportunities suggests we should see some evidence: radio signals, megastructures, signs of stellar engineering, probes visiting our solar system. The physicist Enrico Fermi famously asked, "Where is everybody?" This question has spawned countless proposed answers. The Great Filter theory suggests that something prevents most life from reaching advanced technological civilization, and we either haven't reached that filter yet or we're extraordinarily lucky to have passed it. Perhaps intelligence is common but technology is rare, or civilizations invariably destroy themselves, or they exist but have no interest in contacting or being detected by others. Perhaps the universe is teeming with life but distances are so vast that contact is impossible. Even at the speed of light, communication between stars takes years or centuries. Perhaps we're looking in the wrong ways. listening for radio signals when advanced civilizations use communication methods we can't imagine. Perhaps consciousness and intelligence are so rare that we're alone, or nearly alone, in a cosmos of lifeless worlds. We don't know. The Fermi paradox remains unresolved, and its answer, whether we discover alien civilizations or confirm our cosmic loneliness, will profoundly shape humanity's understanding of our place in the universe. For now, we sit in the great silence, listening, wondering, unable to explain why the universe seems so empty when it should, by all calculations, be full of voices. And finally, we arrive at the ultimate mystery, the question that encompasses all others: is there a purpose to existence? Science can describe how the universe works, trace its history from the Big Bang to the present, predict its future evolution toward heat death. But science cannot tell us why the universe exists, whether existence has meaning, whether there's any purpose to the whole grand cosmic story. Different people answer this differently. Some find purpose in religion or spirituality, believing the universe is created and guided by divine intelligence. Others find purpose in human connection, love, creativity, the reduction of suffering. Still others embrace absurdism, accepting that existence may be fundamentally meaningless and finding freedom in that acceptance. Science remains silent on these questions, not because scientists aren't interested, but because purpose and meaning lie outside the domain of scientific inquiry. We can study what is, but not what ought to be. We can describe how consciousness arises, but not whether it matters. We can explain the mechanisms of life, but not its significance. These aren't failures of science, they're boundaries that define what science is. The deepest questions about meaning, value, purpose may be forever beyond scientific investigation, belonging instead to philosophy, art, personal experience. And so our journey through 100 mysteries comes to its end, or rather, to a gentle pause, for these mysteries continue, eternal companions to human curiosity. We've traveled from the largest scales to the smallest, from the origin of everything to the nature of nothing, from the mechanics of galaxies to the meaning of laughter. We learned that science, for all its magnificent achievements, splitting atoms and mapping genomes, landing rovers on Mars and peering back to the dawn of time, still cannot explain fundamental aspects of reality. Why anything exists rather than nothing. What consciousness is. How life began. Where the universe's matter came from. Why we age, sleep, dream, laugh. What gravity truly is. Whether we're alone in the cosmos. These mysteries aren't failures. They're invitations to wonder, to explore, to remain humble before the vastness of what we don't know. They remind us that for every question science answers, new questions emerge, deeper and stranger than before. The boundary of knowledge expands, but so does the boundary of mystery. Perhaps this is as it should be. Perhaps mystery is not something to be eliminated but something to be honored, a reminder that reality is richer and stranger than our theories can capture. The universe has surprised us before, with quantum mechanics, with relativity, with dark energy, and it will surely surprise us again. What we consider impossible today may be commonplace tomorrow. What we think we understand may turn out to be only the beginning. As you drift towards sleep now, Let yourself rest in this unknowing. You don't need to solve these mysteries. You don't need to understand everything. The universe holds its secrets, and that's perfectly, beautifully fine. You are part of this mysterious cosmos, made of stardust, animated by consciousness, capable of wondering about your own existence. That alone is extraordinary, even if we can't explain it. Let the questions fade now, like stars dissolving into dawn. Let the mysteries support you, cradle you, carry you gently into sleep. Tomorrow the questions will still be there, waiting patiently, eternal companions. But tonight, there is only rest, only peace, only the gentle darkness where all understanding dissolves and sleep comes easily at last. The universe is mysterious. You are mysterious. And in that shared mystery, there is profound peace. Good night.